Okay, well, welcome everyone to our Women in Esports Gaming Concepts webinar. Everyone is in for a treat today because we have some amazing women and some amazing gamers joining us today. And so I'm just going to take a minute and have everyone introduce themselves. I think we'll start with Angie Brown. Angie, can you give us just a little bit of background about yourself and let us know where you're coming from?
Yeah, hi, I'm Angie Brown. I am a American and Czech citizen currently living in the Netherlands. I just completed my international creative business bachelor's degree, and yeah, I graduated by doing my thesis in diversity in gaming. So I worked with Women in Games International and tried to find a solution for them to empower underrepresented genders in the industry. So yeah, and I love gaming, love making content, love playing D&D, and yeah, that's kind of my jam.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, Danielle, how about we move on to you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Christy. So I am Danielle Rourke. I'm the National Esports Manager at CDW. For those of you who may not know CDW, we are a worldwide reseller of computer hardware, software, technology services, integrations, furniture, all the things. And I specifically get to work with kindergarten through PhD on building out esports programs and how to connect those to their academic outcomes and achievements.
Amazing. We're so glad that you're here. Miss Nestle.
Hi everyone. I'm so glad you added PhD, Danielle. That looks so fancy. Now it's a fancy panel. Hi everyone. My name is Nestle. I'm from Istanbul, Turkey. Currently not living anywhere, just traveling everywhere, trying to spread the good word of esports wherever I may go. I am a lecturer at BAU, a university in Istanbul. We run I think, the most successful esports collegiate program in our region. I might say proudly. I'm a researcher. But I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own company. I do consultancy work, project management, tournament ops, whatever you might think of, even board game design and D&D design, which we'll maybe talk about later with Angie on a private chat. Yeah, but I studied very different things: film and television, communication. I did my master's on esports, and then one PhD on heritage management and one in advertisement and communication. So a lot of studying and doing esporty things. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Nestle. And then we'll zip over there to Brittany. I know Brittany, so I know how to say her name. If everybody says, why does she pronounce it that way? Because that's the right way to pronounce it. So I was lucky enough to get to spend time with Brittany down at FETC in Orlando. And so thanks for joining us. So excited that you can be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Um, like she said, my name is Brittany. I am a varsity Halo player and a student at Full Sail University studying game business and esports. I have done a variety of work with different organizations, but most of it has been focused on building out inclusivity for femme presenting persons. And recently I was able to pitch an all femme Halo tournament to Super Pro Gamer Pro as well.
So doing great things, amazing young person. And behind the scenes on our education team today, we have someone super special that a lot of you know. Bubba Gaddert is our behind the scenes. They don't ever let me do these things alone because I'm like a wildcat. I get distracted. And so if our audience has any questions, please put those in the chat and Bubba will take those and moderate those for me so that I don't go off the rails. And then, of course, I'm Christy Custer, and I am one of the writers on Gaming Concepts. I work for Generation Esports. And so we're going to jump right in today, and let's talk about women in esports. Let's talk about esports in general. I'm going to lead the conversation a little bit, but you guys can take it wherever you want to go. So my first question is for Danielle. I'd like to zip over to Danielle. Danielle, with you, there's so many directions that we could go on this. And so I really had to narrow it down. But I think for this panel, I think I'd like to talk about the business side of esports. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey to CDW, how you see esports being utilized in business, either through just the new generation that's coming up, or changing the way business in education is done? Just go for it. Go with it, lady.
Okay, absolutely. I'm gonna try to like Reader's Digest everything so that, I don't just ramble on and on and on. So everybody feel free to tell me if I am rambling. So as far as my journey to CDW, I worked in IT most of my career, software development, etc. I actually was an IT director for the University of Colorado Boulder for a few years, and that's how I got to a job at Dell as an education strategist slash chief technology and innovation strategist for our EDU strategy team there. And that job posting had nothing to do with games. It was all about being a representative to higher education, bringing in that academic background and tying it with my background in technology and talking to our customers about that. And so when I went to Texas to do the interview for Dell, they showed me around and they showed me this esports experience lounge. And they had Alienware gaming machines, the curved monitors, the gaming. It was awesome looking. And so I got very excited. I asked one of the people there with me if they could take a picture to make my son jealous. At the time, he was like 15, 16. So, that's what good moms do. And, but took that picture, and the hiring manager said, okay, is this something you like? Is this something you're interested in? And when I actually speak with students ever since then, when I give lectures or talk with students at different events, I talk to them about the fact that knowing when to let your geek flag fly, like in a very respectful, a very appropriate, a very time bound way, is something that can help motivate others around you to say, oh, this project might be great for them, or oh, this might be something they really want to get involved in. And that's what happened with me after, over a decade of working in IT. I talked about, yeah, I love games. I've been a gamer since I was a little girl. I'm a huge nerd and I love it and I embrace it. And I'm so glad that Angie and Nestle and everybody were talking about D&D because, as you can tell, um, so I did that respectfully in that setting, and he kind of smiled and said, "All right, I may have a side job for you." And so that's how I became the esports and gaming in education subject matter expert for our strategy team there at Dell. So I got to make all of these amazing connections. I think that's when I met you, Christy, and I met Nestle, and just meeting all of these incredible people in the esports world, because I had been a part of the gaming world, but I hadn't really gotten into esports until about 6 years ago. And it opened up a whole new light for me, and especially for businesses too, and the opportunities that it brings about for students. So, we talk a lot in professional panels and in presentations about the advantages of esports programs for students, giving them experiences they never would have had before. Basically, they're acting as program managers and project managers and AV installers, and just this plethora of different proficiencies and career competencies that they're gaining just by being a part of this esports program, where they're also getting community and club and competition. But that also translates to the business world and giving you more skilled workers, giving you more experienced and well-rounded employees that maybe are coming straight out of college. They already have this plethora of experience,
Mhm.
and it's also just a fantastic way for brands to kind of update their image and to recognize where the future is going, where the future of competition and sports is going as well. So I think most brands are recognizing that it's an important area that they need to get involved in.
Right, you see it anywhere from, movies to McDonald's,
Mhm.
food. It's a great way to make that connection with a younger generation and an older generation. I mean, I
Yep.
think that I have that 11-year-old, and so I think the last one of the last Happy Meals was, Super Mario.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had Super Mario in there, so that definitely pulls on a couple different demographics. So, okay, thank you. Well, Nestle, let's move on to you. What are you not doing in esports right now? You're kind of the international woman of esports mystery a little bit. So, I'd like to focus a little bit on your collegiate esports experiences. Who's coming to university for esports, and what are they looking for, and what opportunities are available for people like Brittany, and we'll get to Brittany also, that are getting majors in esports or focusing on that business esports. What's it look like?
It's like a heated debate. I'm sure if you're into esports, you know that should we have degrees in esports? Should we have esports in university, or should it be collegiate? I am not going to say something very clear or specific about it because I think it's a very individual journey. But especially in terms of when you talk about countries like non-US countries, let's say, we actually need the support of institutions to make this a legitimate career choice for younger people, because I personally don't think there's a need for a 4-year bachelor degree per se in every university. But if you don't have the support of institutions, if you don't have professors who are willing to, let's say, put their neck out for their students, if they're not knowledgeable enough about esports, then we are losing a lot of very high potential students. So I think there's a huge need for this sort of getting together. This might change form in terms of, it might be a collegiate program, it might be a team, it might be an after school program when we're talking about high schools, it might be a bachelor's degree. Again, you're going to talk with other panelists, and like what Full Sail does is it's a good bachelor's degree. That doesn't mean that it will work in every university, but definitely there are cases that it's a very good option. So who's coming? The problem I see is they're not coming like everyone is not coming with a clear vision in mind. And there's this, you said that what are you not doing in esports? There's a misconception of esports being a lot of gaming, which is definitely not. We have very similar career paths with Danielle, also personal interest too. I started with gaming, but been doing esports for the past 6-7 years. And now I'm finally actually realizing how different they are after like teaching it for many, many years. Because I always say gaming is huge in terms of revenue, in terms of players. But when it comes to esports, it's a very small pie of the chart, but it's a more intense pie of the chart. Because it's more, you're more involved, you're more into it, the players, watchers, it's a more connected community. So it's very different, dynamics are very different. What I did personally on my journey in university is, it was very difficult, but writing a thesis on esports where there are no degrees available, I had to convince my advisors, and it took me a lot of time to convince them, and a lot of support, and a lot of journals to bring them to, and then they finally agreed. But it was very difficult to write it because they were not on board, they didn't understand it, there were no other people to support my claim. So I think what we're doing at universities is creating these spaces for kids who want to get into esports, not be professional players per se, but want to be involved in esports, especially after undergraduate, at the graduate level. I think it's a very good support system. And in terms of having classes, not again, maybe not degrees, but classes, it gives, because universities are pretty huge and it's not easy to socialize, especially if you're a kid like myself who was not, let's say, I try to be very social nowadays, but who is not really confident to go and seek their own people. So these courses, these clubs, these teams, they create safe places for people, especially women and femme identifying people, or whoever, subculture people, let's say, geeks, gamers, we create spaces where they might feel comfortable, where they might feel like they can show their creative juices, opportunities, and they do it through gaming. So I think esports is a very good medium to show these things.
Nestle, before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about something that you said to me, that it put me back on my heels a little bit. I think I've told you that before, where we were talking about experiences, especially for women, since we are talking about women in esports. And you're a good friend of mine, and so sometimes we chat about things, and I was getting frustrated with some of the things that were happening, and you gave me some perspective about the opportunities that everyone really, but especially women in esports have in the United States, and the opportunities that women have in esports abroad, and how important it is to support women abroad in esports, because that mountain is even higher to climb, or more steep to climb. And I just, I just, I go back to that, Nestle, all the time. And I appreciated that you said that to me and that you felt comfortable enough to say that to me. And I just want you to talk a little bit about that, if you would. Our perspective is so narrow sometimes, that we forget.
Well, the thing is, you are so big that it's inevitable to,
Mhm.
not because, what you see is so big, it sometimes takes a little nudge to make you turn and look the other way, per se. But yeah, I've
Mhm.
been very fortunate. I count myself very lucky to be able to travel all around the world, from like Asia to US too. Like I met you guys, Danielle, you all through professional settings. Then we became friends, and I'm very lucky to have these professional opportunities up for grabs. It's not the case for a lot of people. I was just in Morocco for Play Expo, and that it was so interesting because even I have sometimes have trouble looking to other countries, even though I try, and I try to be very in it. But for example, Africa, like Morocco, I've never thought about them. And when I was going, I thought about it and say, oh, do I have any expectations of who I'm going to see? Uh, and I said, well, probably there's going to be predominantly male, young people. I went on stage, 80% women, young women, and the people who came, because I always say after the talk, I will be around for like half an hour. I will be just around if you want to come and say hi. Only young women came and say hi and asked me very good questions. By the way, very
Mm.
challenging questions. If any of them are watching, you are going to be superstars. I know you are. And they asked me actually good career advice and very good questions. So then I said, okay, well, look at me, not being, awake enough to see other countries. Well, it's not always easy to look at everywhere around the world, but you have to just think about it because it's not the same. Again, with the discussions about universities, that's why I opened it. It might not be the same for every country, because I see very harsh statements from especially collegiate esports world from US, which a lot of them are my friends very happily again, but they're looking at it from a very US perspective where collegiate anything, by the way, not just esports, collegiate something is a fact. That's not the case for almost the rest of the
Mhm.
world. You even take soccer, football, everything is like a huge scale. There are like systems built around it, which we don't have. You have scholarship systems available in universities. Then it's easier to implement esports into it because you
Yeah.
go to, whatever upper management and say, okay, look, let's do the same thing that we do at baseball and do it. Okay, that makes sense. We don't have it in any of the, let's not say we don't have it, but it's not as structured as yours. So then we have to start somewhere. So
Mhm.
opening courses, having degrees, then it makes sense. Also, like certifications, it means something in this part of the world. It
Right.
might not be, you might be revolutionizing education, which I would love, to a degree where we don't need any certifications or degrees or stamps from random people, old people, But what are you going to do? We need it in this part of the world to get jobs and, put it in our resumes and, so then every single person I met at the esports education field are willing to help. They want to help. Genuinely, they want to help students, but you have to consider helping them might look very different according to
Yeah.
them also. But I think it's the same in the US also. It's not the same when you want to help a female student, uh high income student, they're not, it's not the same. It's not gonna, the journey is not gonna look the same for all of them. It's gonna look very different. I know you guys are doing it, by the way, by explaining how esports can mean content creation. It can mean
Right.
only soft skills. We don't like to call it soft skills, but let's call it soft skills, So it
Right.
might mean
Mhm.
a lot of different things. So, but going to that, achieving that might look very different. I know you are not a you don't count yourself a gamer. So it's not the
Right.
same journey as a lot of people, but you came through education, just as I
Right.
do. Like I did board game design, D&D, and then I said, oh, maybe esports can be an option. I played games, and then I wrote my thesis and content creation, and it just
Yes.
come to this.
Yeah.
So this might not be the case for a lot of people, but yeah, there's a lot of potential out there. Go seek people. When you want to
Yes.
employ people, don't look just at US. I know there's a huge potential, incredible. Yes, by the way, I'm
Yeah.
looking at chat and not a gamer, but lives in it. Yes, that's the
That's
case
me.
for Christy. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
a very good gamer, by the way. I think gamer at heart, because
yeah, it
in
depends on what game.
in
Very specific game.
Turkish, game and play, we don't have different words for
True.
it. Game,
Yeah.
play, it's the same. So I love
Yeah.
it. I always say I'm a gamer at heart when I say it in English. In Turkish, game and play are they're not the same. They're just the same.
Yeah.
So I'm just gamer by heart. You too.
Well, that was a great bridge, Nestle, we're gonna zip over to Angie. Angie lives in diversity and inclusion, and she's really been studying diversity and inclusion in the esports and gaming industry. That's how I met her, is through her studies, and she is a fabulous researcher. Asked some great questions that got me to thinking about not only my journey, but also just esports and gaming in general. So, Angie, can you tell us a little bit about the study that you did, some of your findings?
Yeah. So for context, so I did international creative business. It's in no means a esports related degree. It's kind of more focused on marketing, things like that, kind of consulting creatively, as it sounds. But basically, from year one, I knew that I wanted to write my thesis on some sort of diversity in the gaming industry. I don't know why, I just felt it. I was always a avid gamer, but I had no idea that I was going to write my thesis on a topic like that. But I just kind of felt it. And then it happened when I reached out to Women in Games International, specifically Joni Kraut, who's the CEO. She answered my email like the day after, and she was the first client I reached out to. So it was just meant to be. And so when I talked to her, most of their I guess challenges that they were facing had to do with like funding or limited team, or also just finding a way for them to be culturally sensitive. But me, as the person doing the thesis, I had to branch out and kind of figure out like what is the true problem here. And I wouldn't say there was much wrong with women in games as a corporation in general, but I had to look at the industry. So that's also, where I met Christy. So I was like, there is such a lack of data in the industry. I think, especially when it comes to diversity, you just find the same reoccurring information. And I was like, my coaches are not asking me to do this much information in the beginning, or not information, research in the beginning, in terms of field research, but I was like, I have to, because there's really nothing there, let's say, or it's just the same information. And I was like, this isn't going to be enough. So I went on LinkedIn and I was like, I need people from the gaming industry to help me out. And I got insane amounts of people from all over the world in, companies that I would have never expected, like Riot, Ubisoft, educational programs that I didn't know existed, thanks to you guys. So I was very grateful. And with that being said, after talking to about, I think it was over 70 people. I wish it were more, but I only had so much time. I came down to about 5 major, let's say, struggles that women and underrepresented individuals find in the industry. And that's lack of representation within the workforce. I'm sure at some point you guys have heard this statistic that, the gaming industry is only 24% of women. So there are a lack of role models. There's, it's getting better, obviously, but we're still trying to improve it. But for the young people in the generation, it's hard for them to really see themselves in the industry and see, that they have potential to not only enter the industry, but also they have a space here. So that was one of the first issues I found, was just an overall lack of representation being seen. And thankfully it's improving, but there's still a way to go. There's also the typical gender stereotypes where, the thing I kept hearing over and over again from women and, non-binary, femme-identifying individuals was they're not being taken seriously. And for example, when they do speak up, they're seen as obnoxious or attention seeking. But when they're silent, they're seen as, lazy or, not taking initiative. That's what I heard over and over again. And it just made me feel so bad because I was like, this isn't how it should be. So that was another one. Then we have toxic work culture, which just in turn comes with discriminatory practices, unequal pay, harassment, belittlement. Like Nestle was saying, like non-technical roles were being kind of overlooked. It's like, it's not all just programming and, really hands-on and coding and things like that, that there's other roles for people in the industry that even when I started doing my research, didn't realize. So that was very eye-opening for me as well. And yeah, there was just a lot of women found barriers when it came to entering the industry, also not having had a STEM education. But come to find out, about 80% of the people I talked to didn't have STEM education. And that's what made my research more interesting, because I was like, well, how did they get into the industry then? And that's when my eyes also opened. It's like, you can literally be, and I've heard this from someone during the mentorship program that Women in Games was hosting. They were a receptionist in the gaming industry. That's how they entered the gaming industry. And I think now they're a narrative designer in the same company. And that's just super cool. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to become a janitor and then make my way up there eventually, if that's what it takes. So yeah. And then number 4,
there's so many jobs that didn't exist. I mean,
no, exactly.
What's that job? A lot of people ask, what do you do? So yeah.
Right. No, exactly. And yeah, with that being said, number 4 was educational barriers. So just with the sense of like the society stigma around, the gaming industry being this male dominated industry, that not only affects, the minds of the people that are already in the industry, but also the, young people that want to enter the industry, but don't, see it as their place, or they don't think like they're wanted there, let's say. That's why it was really cool when I met Christy and I heard all about, having these educational programs for high schools in the US. And like, I'm American, but I grew up in Europe. So I have a completely different, I guess, point of view. And that's not something I had ever been exposed to here. So I was like, the fact that that's a thing now in the US, I find super fascinating, because now that barrier can kind of be broken and there's more of a pipeline. But I heard that a lot from the women while researching, is like they themselves didn't have that pipeline, or, they thought they had to have a STEM education to get into the industry, which is not true, thankfully. Anyways, final one. Lack of networking opportunities or career advancement. Basically, I saw that based on what the people had told me, that university programs were unintentionally kind of creating these gender disparities, limiting network opportunities, and eventually hindering their professional growth. So, women were seeing promotion denials in comparison to their male colleagues. As I said before, unequal salaries, having a difficult time accessing resources that would, aid in their professional growth, as well as just like facing negativity for being assertive, the lack of support, and just, ongoing education for women in the industry. Those were my, I guess, top 5 major takeaways from my thesis. Of course, my thesis was much, much longer and was 6 months worth of research, but those were just my top findings.
And Angie, if you would drop, because I had the opportunity to read it, and if you would drop the link to your thesis Bubba in the background. I think that if
Yes.
he would show that, because it had some fascinating research. And as I read it, and I was watching Danielle, Nestle, Brittany, shaking their heads, because that's, you know, some of the things that happen. It's not being whiny. And that is one of the things that Angie and I talked about is, sometimes when you stand up for yourself, you feel like you're whining, and it wasn't whining. It was real. And we need to talk about these things. So if you wouldn't mind dropping that in, Angie, because I think
Of
there's a lot of
course.
people that would be interested in reading that and finding out more, and identifying with the things that you talked about. Well, let's move on to Brittany. Brittany, you are the generation that has started studying things like game business and esports, and you're at Full Sail University, as well as being a student there. You're also on the varsity Halo team, and you're a content creator. This just might be every esports person's dream for so many young people. So I guess, first of all, because this might be new for some people, what are you planning to do with a game business and esports degree? And then second, can you tell us, what does your life look like as a varsity esports athlete at a university?
Yeah. So just to start off, because it is something that is brand new. It's even brand new to Full Sail. It's actually
Yeah.
this is, I think, we're going into the second year of it even being a degree program. And I just want to start by saying that esports it's a huge environment with so many points of entry, especially for someone with this degree. However, for me personally, I really want to work towards kind of becoming a technical director for behind the scenes at events for an organization, or even becoming like a team manager for an esports like pro team. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a pro player, but I'm kind of on the borderline right now of if I want to continue into that, or if I want to focus more on kind of behind the scenes or on a higher level. Um, but that kind of pushes me into what my life looks like right now as an athlete, and as a student, because I am an online student. So it's really important that I'm balancing my schedule properly so that I have time for work on class projects, practice time between series matches, those series matches with my team, but also self time so that I'm not experiencing that burnout. And it is really also important that I'm able to make space in my schedules for opportunities like this, where I can put a positive emphasis on what female varsity players look like and what female esports students look like. Because even in the team settings, even in like the esports environment, there is still so much unspoken, like inadvertent sexism that it causes issues that you don't even actively notice until you look back on it.
Mhm.
There are so many times where I've almost experienced burnout trying to prove that I belong here when I look at my team and my team goes, "You know that you earned your place, right? You don't have to continue to prove that you belong here." Um, but so what I end up doing is that most of my weeks right now I have 5 days on where I have practice, matches, homework. So like I'm focused and I'm honed in. And then I have like a day of just me playing Halo and then kind of mixing in other games so I can balance out the burnout space. And then I
Right.
have like one full 24-hour period where I'm just doing like random things for myself, like playing D&D or watching movies with my partner.
Yeah. Brittany, you hit on something that I know we're talking about esports, but I come from education, and I've had 3 children, and 3 times I went on maternity leave, and I dang near killed myself to show that I deserved maternity leave, that I deserved my job. No one put pressure. I had such a supportive environment where I was at, and where I am at also at Generation Esports. We put so much pressure on ourselves. It's not coming, and sometimes it is, and I don't want to discount those experiences that people have had where it does come from an outside entity, but no, this was all pressure from within. And so I think that, I don't know if it's personal to me that I'm like that, but I've seen it in a lot of other women that we feel like we have to be everything all at once all the time. And it's just not possible. And so I'm so happy to hear you talk about burnout and, that you're managing your schedule. And because it's something that as a 48-year-old woman, I struggle with that all the time. And I'm not saying that my male colleagues don't, but it just seems like there's an added layer there for whatever reason that I have personally. And so I see, Danielle, you're shaking your head. Let's talk about that for just a second. The expectations that we have for ourselves. Do you guys find that is it different? Is it self-induced? Where does it come from? Why are we like this?
I think for me personally, I have been playing video games I'm 25 now. I started when I was 3. I'm third generation, so like I'm not just proving this for myself. I'm proving this for my uncle who got me into gaming, my grandmother who got me into gaming, but I'm also making it so you touched on something that I've brought into my own life so many times where is it self-induced or is it an outside source? And for me, it's both. Because even now I experience those things where like, yes, I proved myself as a player that I can be here, but I'm still getting hit with those. You're only on that team because you're a girl and they wanted diversity. You're only on there because you're a girl, so you didn't have to work to earn it. And it makes me so angry because in the last month alone, I've put in 150 hours of Halo gameplay just so that I can improve and get to a point where like I have those skills honed to a point, and I'm still improving every day. And that's something that like when I look at my male teammates, I'm not seeing that like them getting that feedback. Like when they earn their space on the team, the responses from outside sources were, "Oh, so you're a good player." But then I look at myself and I'm like, so why is it when they earned their space, they're a good player, but when I earned my space, I'm a girl? It hurts, but it also kind of fuels that fire in my soul where I'm like, I have to work harder to prove it, but I'm going to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah. Steffi Bao, I don't know if any of you know Steffi. She just is an inspiration to all of us. And if you don't know Steffi Bao, you need to find Steffi Bao because she is one tough person. She said, it doesn't matter how you got there. You're there, so make a difference. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. It doesn't matter because you're here. And so now go make a difference. So does anyone else want to touch on
I
that?
think there's a constant pressure for us to prove ourselves. It's not only in esports or gaming. I listen to metal music and I give this reference to anytime whoever asks me. Like whenever I wear anything remotely mentioning that I listen to metal music, okay, tell me 5 songs of these band and obscure songs and cite all the lyrics and they question me on the spot and like, oh, come on, don't do this. Or in esports as well, they try to ask me, let's say, difficult questions that would put me on spot. Don't do that. I will beat you. I will, I will show you what it is. I teach this for a living. Even if I couldn't, I would have, because it's not only about knowing your stuff. It's about, you cannot do this to me. I don't give you the power to do this to me, to corner me. I don't give you that importance to corner me. And that's sadly, that happens to almost every woman in almost every field, but especially in fields that are geeky, let's say. They just try to prove have you ever heard when a woman is doing their makeup or count me 5 makeup brands and make them obscure and tell me what this lipstick shade is? I don't know, I don't care. Good for you.
I would be horrible at that question. I would be so bad at that question.
I do makeups all the time and I wouldn't be able to tell you those things.
And no one would ask you because we would be like, you look pretty, great. Just would you give me the name of it if you remember? I would not question. I wouldn't even think about it because it's not a healthy way of looking at things, I think. Cornering people, what would you get out of it? You're going to prove your dominance. So what? Why? Are you that not manly enough to learn something from me? Because if you ask the right question, we might and probably would have a very good conversation. You might learn something very new from me. I might learn something new for you. It would be a win-win for both of us and, we'll go our merry ways. But no, you have to, and I think that's where it stems for all of us. It comes from within, but there are external triggers
Sure.
that make us think this way, to question ourselves and try to prove our worth. And this imposter syndrome, I think we all sometimes kind of
Yes.
feel.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Danielle, I'm going to zip back to you for a second.
Oh, do you
What
mind if
opport-
we I know
Oh,
Angie had her hand up.
oh,
If
I'm so sorry. I
No,
did
that's
not
okay.
see
I
that.
just wanted to give her
I
some space.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Remember, I get crazy cat here, and I'm off on my own. Angie, please, please.
Yeah, no worries. I was just gonna add that I also find it just in the competitive gaming space as well. I find it entertaining that men or just little like 13-year-old boys will also be like, well, are you a woman or a man? And if they find out you are a woman, they then call you bad and trash, but then they also forget that they are in the exact same rank as you. And it's kind of ironic because it's like, well, if you were so much better, and if apparently men are more skilled, let's say, then they would be in a higher rank. But it's just something you constantly hear as a woman also playing competitively in games, and I find that amusing. Just wanted to add that in there.
So maybe that's a way we respond when we get that in lobbies or in games. Be like, oh, so did you come down here so that you could take it easy on yourself?
Uh-huh.
Like, is that
With
what's going on?
little old me down here,
Yeah.
little old me.
It's even
Yeah.
better when they say that they did come down from a higher level, and you're like, then why am I outperforming you? I'm very confused.
Exactly. No, it's very entertaining. Unfortunate
Yeah.
that it happens, but entertaining when you can say something back at them. It's like, this is what you get. You started this fight. Sorry.
Yeah, mic drop. I love it, Bubba. I love it. All right. Okay, now am I good? Did I miss anybody? I appreciate that, Danielle. So, Danielle, I'm wondering, what opportunities do you see for women? Because you kind of have that broad, you've had that education experience, you've had that business experience. What opportunities do you see for women who have an interest in esports and gaming that aren't perhaps talked about as much as pro gamer or content creator? I know that when I first got into the industry, I thought there were people that fixed the computers and people that played the games. That's pretty much what I thought there were. And then, this whole world opened up to me, and we've talked about some of the career fields. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just as a general statement, I think that women and femme identifying people can be whatever they want in the gaming industry. It shouldn't matter and it doesn't matter. And that's one of the amazing things about gaming is that it is the great equalizer. So that would be kind of my blanket statement. But as
Yeah,
far as like, ideas and positions that maybe aren't talked about as much, I know I've actually had a lot of conversations with both students and facilitators and administrators from both K-12 and high ed programs where they say, hey, these particular people didn't necessarily want to compete. And I've had it be both male gendered and female identifying, but yeah, I really hear a lot of it when it comes to the female identifying people where they're like, I want to be a part of this. I play. I'm just,
right,
I'm nervous, or society has kind of painted me in this box of I'm supposed to be quiet and not, out there and competitive and things like that. So I've seen a lot of them get their start in shoutcasting or in team management or in analytics. And then,
hmm
once they kind of get into that environment and they recognize that, like, oh, hey, I'm in the same rank as those people that are playing, so why don't I play too? They
right,
can migrate into that. But there are also a lot of female identifying people that don't ever go into the full gameplay. Like, they love it and they just want to be around it. And to be honest, like if I was, in high school or in college right now, that's where I would be too, because
right,
of my personality type. Like, I'd want to be doing the behind the scenes things. I'd want to be, helping the analytics and driving the team performance or doing the marketing, et cetera. So I think that there's just so many different places that female identifying people and non-binary people can go. The sky is the limit. And, whether you want to design the music for the games, or you want to do art for the games, or you want to write copy for the people that really like being in front of the camera and want to talk about it, all of those things are open to you.
right. Well, I think we have a very good, and keep in mind I'm from the Kansas City area. So I think we have a really good example of that with American football and Taylor Swift, because there are a lot of women that Brittany's going to throw up in her mouth a little bit, but bear with me. I think there's a lot of women who never played football or did not have the interest in football, who now have a love for football because they were introduced to football. And so, I'm one of those people that I grew up playing video games because I have three brothers, but I'm very vocal about I'm not a gamer. And I'm very vocal about that, probably overly vocal about it, because I probably am more of a gamer than I let on, because I want people to know that you don't have to play the games to be part of this cool, amazing experience. Because I don't play games, but I love to be part of the culture. I love people who love to play video games. That's what I always say. I love people who love to play video games, and I have something to contribute. And so if you have those things and you have a love for it, you don't have to have grown up playing American football to be an umpire on the field now, to be a coach. And so I love that. I love that you said, I just want to be part of something. And that's what I think a lot of kids, and Angie, you and I have talked about that before too. They're finding a spot in esports, in gaming, because it can be such a welcoming environment. So we're kind of talking about the negative things, but there's also a lot of positive things about esports and gaming where it's a place that people can fit in. Okay. Have I missed? I can't believe it. I just looked at the time and we have like 12 minutes here. So I need to use my time very valuably here. I want to talk a little bit about, I often talk about my colleague, Michael Russell. He is super sensitive about the way people treat me when we attend events and when we're asked to speak. And sometimes it's like, even at his own detriment, he will push me forward because he knows how it's been. He's been shocked at some of the things that have happened to me. And so can we talk a little bit about some of the ways that champions and people who want to make things better and more diverse can help? What are some of the things, and for lack of a better word, are allies, esports allies for women? What are some of the things that you're seeing people do? What can we do for each other? Some advice.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a
Sure.
example, a real
Yeah.
life example. There, Doug Konopelko is our senior manager of education impact here at CDW, and he used to be the esports manager. And so people reach out to him all the time to be on panels, to be a part of events. And he has started saying, like, hey, have you asked these people? Have you asked
Yeah.
these young people that are still in college? Have you asked these women? Have you asked these, marginalized genders or groups of people? Don't just come to me just because you've seen me on other things. Actually go out to these people, and here's a list of people, and here are their email addresses. I'll even do a warm intro for you. So that's
Wow.
something that I love that he does. And I've also seen others in the industry too, like whether that's a Sari Keitlin who's saying, like, I want to make sure that the younger, yeah, I see Britannia's like smile there. But saying I want to make sure that the younger, the newer voices are having a chance to also share this stage, because they're the future. Like, they're the ones that are going to make
Absolutely.
this go. So I very much appreciate both male and female and non-binary allies that help just bring everybody else together and give them those opportunities.
Right. Right. Brittany?
Yeah. So to kind of build off of that, I feel like a really important thing that you can do is if you are in those spaces with, people like us, like you, me, Danielle, Angie, Nestle, if you're there with us and you see people or anyone that's femme presenting in the industry and you see people actively talking over them or avoiding bringing their input into the conversation, redirect it, especially if you know that that person that they're actively avoiding is an expert in that specific topic. For me, a lot of times, like I have 150 hours in a month. I put a lot of time into video games. I have been playing
Mhm.
video games a very long time. my male gamer friends, if they can see people actively avoiding letting me answer a question that I know the answer to, they'll redirect. They'll go, well, I know she's been playing way longer than I have, so you'd want to talk to her about that. She would know the answer to that. I don't. So redirection can be so big. And, a lot of time I see people taking that voice from the people that they want to make those things better for, but, they don't mean to, but it does make things a lot harder for us when we're trying to make our voice heard. So that redirection kind of removes that like existence of they're not being allowed to talk. I'll talk for them. We don't want that. We appreciate the sentiment that you're putting there, but that's not what we need.
Right.
I love the redirection, right? It's wonderful because it's very, although I hate to admit that, I would like to say, no, please, I want a perfect world where people ask me the questions, which is not the case for now. So redirection is a very good way, especially in big networking events where you kind of get out loud it, a lot of people just talk over you immediately. One of the recent events that I went, and I think I mentioned this in our Women of Esports chat, they didn't invite me to somewhere. And I was like confused as to why that may be the case, because it was a professional outing. It was not a friendly thing. I said, a friend of mine came, a male friend of mine, and said, oh, they're not inviting you because you're a young female and you're not with someone, so you might pose a threat to their partners and relationships. I was like, this is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. We are not going to, frenzy. We are not gonna go to, I don't know, whatever you're dreaming, I don't know. We're just gonna have a professional meal after this whatever event. So that's so hurtful and stupid. I'm sorry. So that is the case, sadly. So when you have someone that invites you in, like redirects questions to you, or invites you to these things and tell the other people like you're being stupid. This is not an excuse. So that gives you the opening to get in. And then after 5 minutes, you're going to claim your space. That's given. I'm sure anyone in this panel or anyone, I think you guys are very capable. All females, I have the utmost trust in you. You're going to claim your space. But sometimes a little nudge, a little redirection, we sadly still need it. I know Michael is a fantastic person. And I personally saw what he did for you. It's not that he is a better gamer than you, but it's not the point. You are a better educator than him. But, there's no discussion of who's better at what. He just nudges a little. He's not even saying, look at Christy. He's not doing that. It's just like a little nudge, a little pushing you in front and taking a little step back. It's not like, deleting himself. It's just like a little step back to say, well, don't you want to? And he even did that to me at one of these things. Like, do you want to ask her? Because she comes from the thing that, I'm like, oh, that's very cool to have. You don't need it.
Incredible.
I wish we didn't need it at all, but it helps. Redirect.
It is what it is.
I'm going to use it. Redirect.
Redirect. Well, with these last 5 minutes that we have here, Bubba, I know you're in the background and I've seen some questions pop up. Are you in a position, Bubba, where you could ask those questions and let our panelists answer them? Well, there you go.
Yes. Yes. A good one that came from Sylvia is right here. Do you have any tips, recommendations for making your way into the industry as a young woman?
I guess, yeah, I would like to start. Obviously, I just graduated. I'm not even in the industry yet, but I thankfully had a lovely mentor that, kind of gave me some tips on, what kind of steps should I be taking as someone who not only doesn't have a background at all in gaming other than playing video games and doing my thesis research. I was like, well, where do I even start? And as I said before, I also met people during the mentorship program that Wiggy hosted that just said, oh, I was a receptionist and then I became this. But the first thing that my mentor was telling me was basically like, go to game jams, which is like, you don't have to be a programmer or a coder or an artist for that matter in the industry, but just going to game jams and having that opportunity to network with other people that are in the industry will allow you to not only like make the connections that you need, I heard over and over again that networking is a huge part of this industry. And, you know, if you have a certain skill that you want to bring into the industry, you know, make it known, like tell everyone and anyone at these game jams, at any events you go to. And you can only hope that like eventually they're sitting at their job and they'll be like, oh, I remember blah, 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 telling me that they are really good at this. And, you know, your name would pop in their head. And the more you do that, the more you network and tell, like, you know, boast about yourself, which it's a good thing, you know, like they'll remember you, and hopefully that'll just circle back and allow you to have an easier way getting into the industry. Yeah.
Just to add on to that really quickly, Angie, like programs like Wiggy's mentorship program and, getting those mentors or reaching out to other, female or female identifying people that are in the industry, seeing if you can just buy them a coffee or just sit and talk with them for a little bit, that's going to help build that network as well as build that confidence that you were talking about to reach out to them.
I don't think I've run across anyone that didn't extend a hand. Sometimes I don't know that you need a hand, but I don't think that anyone's turned me down and said, no, I won't help you. Brittany, you have something to add?
Yeah, just to like pick up on it, because networking is super important, but in order to get to that point, you have to be able to be your own voice and you have to be able to advocate for yourself. Because like if you can't sell yourself, then you have to understand that there's not something that they're able to see from you. So what I did was pick 3 unique qualities that I had, and I kind of built myself around them into what I present to people. That's how I met Sari. That's how I met Tracy. And now it's how I've met you all, because I was able to network myself by advocating for myself.
You're an unbelievably hard worker also, and that does not hurt. Bubba, what else do we have, sir?
There's a question about nonprofit. I've been chatting with Logan offline, and I think Nestle will probably as well. A little more.
I think Angie can also later talk on the Viggy experience on nonprofit, maybe, I don't know, but I founded my own NGO on children's and underrepresented groups playwrights with my mom 8 years ago. So we have an NGO that we run internationally, and we do a lot of education and gaming projects, totally nonprofit, because that's just who my mom is, and she's awesome, and she taught me to be good. So I have that experience, but I'm also a member of Women in Games, and I think I'm the first Turkish member of Women in Games, and then I do a lot of other NGO work as well. It's very different. The difference is incredibly high. The difference between working for a for-profit, which I also have to do, my only job is not NGOs. Well, when it comes to brands, when it comes to esports being very dynamic, there's a lot of expectations from brands and companies when it comes to esports. They think it's a magic pill that will get all the attention from young people. When you do a little sponsorships, I don't know, millions of sales are going to go crazy, and like anyone who ever touched the computer will buy your product. That is not the case. That's definitely not the case. It helps because, as I said, the esports, I'm not saying gaming, esports fans or followers are more passionate, but that means they do their due diligence a bit more harder, so they're difficult to convince. So there's a selling, let's say, expectation when it comes to for-profit esports, but when it comes to NGOs, especially NGOs that are like associations, like a bigger scale NGOs like we do, we use esports as a tool to reach. It's a medium to reach the young people. It's not the end goal. We don't aim to teach esports, but it is an incredibly uniting factor that is not used enough, in my opinion, because it has the sports element, it has the teaching element, it has the gaming element, which is very fun. It does not require incredibly high-tech systems if you're not doing for high competitive environment. You can do it with tablets even, or like basic computers. You can just do it. But just the idea of esports. So with that, I mean using gaming in a limited time for a competitive means to teach, especially young people, something. It's an incredible tool. So
Yeah.
NGOs have this option, let's say the luxury to not be competitive in terms of like fiscally, like monetary competitive about it. And that shows you the opportunity to the beauty of esports, I think. The actual
Yeah.
beauty that we want to see in the competitive scene, but sometimes it's overshadowed by other
Right.
priorities. But in
Right.
NGOs, it's incredibly fun to use esports as a tool. I don't
Right.
know if that's the exact answer to the question, but if you have any more specific questions, I can always take them afterwards on LinkedIn.
Well, and Nestle, that kind of leads to my next point. We're at our time here, and I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. I couldn't believe it when you all said yes, and so I'm so grateful. But if you would be open to giving out some contact information, Danielle, what's a great way to contact you?
Yeah, either on LinkedIn. I saw Bubba put it in the chat.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is a great way. I'm also at Gaming Culturist on Twitter or X or however we're supposed to refer to it now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Angie, would you be willing to be a contact for people if they had any questions? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah. So same for me. Also LinkedIn. Yeah, that's the easiest way. Just point. Yeah, blank period. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Brittany?
For me, it would probably be LinkedIn as well, which I know was linked in the chat. But my Twitter is just at Soda Pressing TV. That's my content creator channel. So my business email is linked in that bio as well. So those are going to be the best ways to contact me because those are going to be the things that I check the most frequently.
Right. Right. In your 150 hours of play. And then Nestle.
Yes, I know Bubba is awesome. So he already gave out all the links. I already have some ad requests. So thank you, people adding me. LinkedIn is the best
Awesome.
way because I'm a proper LinkedIn person checking it daily. But Twitter, I'm trying to get into it because one of my students said, yeah, I used to have a private
Mhm.
account all the way. He said, nope, it's not going to fly, professor. So just you have to make it open. So now I try to be, reaching out through Twitter, but LinkedIn is the best choice. But, we are easy to reach. We are everywhere once you get into the esports scene.
Well, and selfishly, I hope you guys know that we're going to put this link in our gaming concepts book. So when we talk about women in gaming, so that will be super fun too. I was hoping it would turn out this well. And I appreciate once again, all of you for giving us time. Bubba in the background. Thank you, sir. As always, for being our tech wizard back there and making sure that I stay on track. So our next Gaming Concepts webinar is going to be about collegiate esports and scholarships. I think that one is on April 9th. So if you are interested in doing that, it's on the Gaming Concepts website. And at this time, I'd once again like to thank our panelists, and wish everybody a good day, evening, night, wherever you're at. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having us.
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a great night.